there, it's Natasha and thank you so much for joining me today. If you have followed my channel for a little bit, you will know that I love finding many uses for the stamps and dies that I choose to invest in. So finding another way to use them is really fun. And today I have been enjoying doing this for a little bit with some border dies. And I thought I would bring you guys along for this one. So I am cutting down a piece of 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch card front, so that it measures 3 3/4 by 5 1/2 inches. So I just cut a little bit off each side, about 1/4 inch off each side. So I am going to colour this with some Mowed Lawn Distress Oxide ink. Now you could blend this ink on really nicely and do a really nice job, but for me it's just as easy to swipe the ink down and it has covered my piece of cardstock. You could also just use a green piece of cardstock if you have that handy, but I tend not to keep too much coloured cardstock on hand, especially not bigger pieces, because I just don't have the room to store it. So I create my own, which is nice and quick and easy. Then I have this mandala. It's a cling mandala flower from Stampendous. This one is one of my favorites. I'm not sure what it is about this. I kind of like the size, that it's not super big and I can use it really easily. I also really like Mowed Lawn and Rustic Wilderness, the two colours. Rustic Wilderness is the new Distress Oxide colour that just recently came out. And honestly, I haven't really run to get the new colours and things. It doesn't bother me. I don't need the newest things. I just want things that are functional and work well in my craft room. But this was a colour that I felt was definitely missing in their range. And these are my two kind of true green colours. So Mowed Lawn and Rustic Wilderness are my sort of my leaves, my grass, my anything that I need green. These are my favourite colours. So I really like them together, and today I decided to make kind of a nice subtle background out of them. So I'm just stamping it all over. I'm not even using an acrylic block or anything. I'm just stamping it down so that there is a nice background pattern. And then just because I am using some Oxide inks and they stay wet for a little bit longer, I am going to dry them because I don't want lots of ink coming off when I'm working with my paper, and I certainly don't want to smudge the pattern that I have created already. So I'm going to give it a quick dry with my heat gun. And then from there, I am going to get my dies ready. So I was looking through my stash and looking at the border dies that I have, and thought it would be fun to use them for a lace up technique, so kind of lacing up the paper. So I have this little set here. Now this is a kind of short set. I think they measure about 4 1/4 or 4 1/2 inches long, which is obviously not long enough to go lengthwise up and down, but it is across the width usually of my cards. It's usually long enough, but for this I want to go up and down. So you do want to make sure that there is something to lace up. So this one is creating little holes that I will thread through some yarn or some ribbon. Looks beautiful. And I'm going to die cut it once, and then as you see, when I take it off here, I'm just going to carefully unpeel it. Take off the mint tape first, and again, it's so important when I'm halfway through a project like this, I do not want anything to tear, so that's why the mint tape is super important to me. And I'm just going to kind of line it up on the back here. I'm just checking the back, making sure that it is lined up, and then taking it off again. Now I am going to run it through the second time to create the other side, and this one does not go quite as well. Now I was tempted to start again, I will admit. I kind of looked at it and thought, oh man, that's not what I wanted. So when I run it through the first time here, all goes well, and then when I try and line it up, obviously I was not looking very well and just ran it through, and it kind of mushed the pattern a little bit, and I missed a little bit. So I won't be able to lace up all up and down my design. Now this is only going to be a problem if you have them like me, where you need to kind of do two different passes, different runs through your cutting machine. If you have a border die that is long enough and it can go up and down, you won't have this problem at all. But I'm going to show you what I did to fix this problem, and it just changed my little plan for how I was going to lay out my card. But I love how it turned out in the end. So I wanted to leave this in the video and kind of let you know that where there is a will, there is a way, and we will solve it. So I have got some burlap ribbon here. Now I probably just need to go and buy some, but this is what I do when I need some kind of nice burlap rusticy string. I just cut a little bit off the side here, and that releases the little sort of plastic fibers that are in between the burlap, and then you can pull off as many pieces as you like. And then I just store this, I just wrap it back up, roll it back up, and pop it in my drawer, and then that way I always have string ready for when I need a project for it. And then I have a couple of pieces of fun foam here, just white fun foam, which I'm adding some double-sided tape to both sides of it, and this will pop up my little laced panels. So I'm just adding one onto each side of them, and then I'm going to pop these down onto a card base, which is 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches, and then I'm also going to add a little bit of liquid glue on the back here, which I know defeats the purpose of putting the double-sided tape, but I wasn't thinking. But it does mean that I'm able to shift these around and get them nice and completely even when I put them down on my card base, because I want the very far left and the very far right hand sides of my project to kind of look even and the same. So there's a nice little bit of spacing in the middle there, and then I will use my string to thread it up and lace up the inside of my card. Now, you can obviously use anything. I used a little bit of white satin, really kind of thin white satin ribbon, and that looked absolutely beautiful and stunning. But for this card, I was kind of going a little bit more rustic, and hence I'm going for the burlap or the twine or string. I really like that look for this one, but honestly, you can do this with anything, any sort of cord or waxed thread or embroidery thread, anything that you have lying around, this would look beautiful. And I'm going to thread from both sides here because I have this big kind of hole in the middle. So if I didn't have that hole, then I just keep going down all the way and I tuck the ends up to the left and the right, kind of underneath the panels. However, because I had this, I just wanted to show you how I combat it, and all I'm going to do is add a gorgeous little bow over top. So I'm cutting another little piece of the burlap ribbon, and then I will just tie a little bow, and that will become my focal point for the front of my card. Now, I also thought about making a sort of flower out of the burlap ribbon. I really like it those, or you could just die cut some flowers or cut and stamp out some flowers. You could put any kind of feature that you want to cover up this front bit. You could also just add a vellum circle and then a plain white cardstock with circle on top with your sentiment. I mean, there are so many ways that you can hide little bits and pieces that didn't quite originally weren't in your plan. So this little mishap was definitely not in my original plan, but I've changed it up. I've popped that bow on with some liquid glue and then popped a nice heavy book on top. Then I'm going to work on my sentiment. This is the same Altenew stamp set that you've seen so many times, and I'm just going to use that thank you there. Previously, I cut this up for a different video so that all of the words are now individual, and that helps me out just fine because instead of the entire sentiment, I'm just going to have the thank you words. I'm going to stamp it in the Rustic Wilderness, which is the same color that we stamped the Mandala stamp with, and that way, again, we're just not bringing in any new colors and we are coordinating everything. I'll stamp it out a couple of times because knowing me, I will need to use the second one as well. Usually if I only stamp one, I will most definitely muck it up and then need to get everything out all over again. At this point, I just didn't know which shape I needed, so I just cut it out with my scissors, but then I decided I just wanted to put a really nice kind of plain little angle on it there. And again, bringing in the burlap, I'm going to pop it as a little bit of backing ribbon there. I'm using double-sided tape only because it sticks nice and fast to the burlap. Otherwise, you could definitely use liquid glue or a tape runner or something like that. But I know that this is a really strong double-sided tape and it gets the job done nice and fast. I don't have to wait for glue to dry or anything. So I'm just making sure that the burlap has the same angle on the little corner there, and there's a little bit of ribbon poking out the bottom. And then I will trim the right-hand side. Now, if you end up making a card using the lace-up feature, I would absolutely so love to see it. We have a great Facebook page that is the best place to do that. I am now also on Instagram, and you can tag me in any of the cards you create. On Instagram, I am Natasha Foote Creative. So if you would like to do that, I'm able to see your creations and designs. Otherwise, you can post them to our Facebook page. As I said, I will leave all of the links to the supplies used and the ways that you can contact me down in the description box below. But that is my card for today. I had so much fun doing all of these techniques, and I went for gold with so many more. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I really look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thanks, bye!